So here at the Reality Check booth, we're going to be talking to people throughout the entire weekend about what's happening as it relates to certain topics for EVs. And right now, I'm joined by David Alspaugh. You are the co-founder and CTO of Inductive Robotics. Did I get it all right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Ooh,
right.
bang, bang. So, David, what is it you want to talk about as it relates to, again, it's not just plug and play. When you're putting, charging is, getting it working is there's a lot that goes on to making that sausage, right?
Yeah, there's a lot there to it, and we focus specifically on the commercial segment. And so, in these types of environments, it's a bit complicated between property owners, parking operators, the EV owners themselves using that environment. And what we found is, although there's a lot of interest in adding EV charging into these environments, when you look at zero to ready to charge, there's a lot of steps in between, a lot of permitting, a lot of process, and a lot of people get lost in that process. They think it's going to be a seamless thing to just add EV charging on their property. And when they start to take a look at it, they realize, well, I may not have enough power. The process of site design and scanning and trenching and coring and drilling and all this that's required to get that power in there, it's really complex.
Well, so you're on the front line. So if you're hearing us today and you're here at the show, you're basically on a as they call it, B2B, like business to business. So you're on the commercial side. Anybody who owns a building that might say, we want to add charging, the resources that you and your company provide are really to help walk them through so they don't make a mistake, because if they go in without having the knowledge, they might find themselves going down a process that could have been a lot more efficient if they had the right resources that you provide.
Yeah, exactly. And we've just, talking with these real estate owners and parking operators, we've just heard too many, horror stories, unfortunately, where, maybe they added a few chargers a few years ago. There wasn't enough demand on site. Every site has a very unique demand profile. And so understanding where does my garage sit in relationship to its community, what types of folks are parking there? Are they, working in that environment? Are they transitory through that touristing? And so a lot of factors sort of determine the demand profile on a location. And it's really important to take a close look at how does that garage sit in the community. There's a saying in the industry, if you've seen one garage, you've seen one garage. And
nice.
And so it's funny because as a EV owner or as an owner of a vehicle, you just think parking is parking. Like, what's the big deal? But the reality is there are vastly different types of parking environments, and then understanding that as a real estate owner and understanding your tenant profile there is really important, because it's going to help you figure out how much charging should I add now versus how much in the future. And what we're doing at Inductive Robotics is trying to help them reduce that burden. A lot of charging is a one-way construction project. You make a decision of 6, 10, 12, whatever chargers, and then that 12 to 18-month process, you're fixed. You're locked into that number of chargers. And now you may find 1 year after the project, I only needed 2, honestly.
Right, yeah. The commitment you make has to really fit with what you need in the long run.
Exactly, exactly. And then in 4 to 5 years, it might be, okay, now I need that 10 to 12, but maybe my chargers are no longer supported, or maybe things haven't worked out the same way, my support services are not right. So trying to help owners make a flexible decision is a lot about what we do.
Well, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is creating access points for electricity as fuel. That's really what we're talking about. And that's the beauty of it, though, is those access points. Number one, if you're a homeowner, it's at home. And a lot of that's going to happen for home. But from a commercial perspective, if someone doesn't have the option to fill up at home, they're relying on the build-out of infrastructure that you're describing.
That's right. That's right. I often think of EV charging, the EV charging landscape as 3 sectors. One being home charging. If you own your home, if you have reserved parking, it's a slam dunk. It's really awesome.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's wonderful. On the other side of the spectrum, you have off-highway fast charging, DC fast charging. And for long trips, also great. Rapid charging.
It's fundamental. Yeah.
Really great. The problem is we've got this zone in the middle between the home and off-highway fast charging. And what has happened is we've designed 2 solutions, one for the home and one for off-highway. And we've basically said that everyone in the middle is going to have to use one or the other.
Or some version of it.
Exactly, some version. Like, we're going to put a home level 2 charger into a commercial environment, or we're going to put a off-highway charger near where people work so that they can leave work and go to a charger, a DC fast charger. And none of these solutions are optimal for the EV owner. And so what we've done is really take a step back and say, oh, okay, based on what the real estate asset owners are telling us and the parking operators are telling us, what would a dream solution look like for them? And what can we give them to make this a two-way decision in terms of, let's get charging in there, but if it doesn't work out, we have a way out of it that doesn't lose a bunch of money. in setting up all that infrastructure. So that's really how we think about EV charging.
Well, and again, for those who are new to EVs, and again, if you're shopping for an EV, you're hunting for the right one, it really boils down to the opportunity of when your car is going to be sitting the longest, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
so if
right.
you're a homeowner, it's like, well, that's my garage, yay. But if you're not, like you said, that middle ground of someone who says, I rent an apartment and I street park, or I have to find a spot at my apartment, either A, the apartment complex, go to them and say, hey, we want to get something here for tenants. They might have to work with you, but then it turns into if they got to go find their fill up, they got to know how to navigate those commercial locations that you're putting into the ground.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on what you're saying, like your car is parked for 92% of its life. It's well measured. 92%
It's a very
of its
good
life.
paperweight, honestly. It's very efficient at paperweighting.
It's an expensive paperweight, and our general philosophy is, passive charging will always beat fast charging. And what we mean by passive charging is if your car is charging wherever you're parked, that's always going to win, right? Because, I don't actually care about how fast the charger is if it's just, charging while I'm at work, right? If it's fully charged by the time I leave work, I don't care how fast.
That's akin to parking in your garage at home and just waiting for 8 hours, and you're good.
Exactly.
Well, I think that one of the biggest challenges, too, is we're talking about a lot of just behavioral change of everyday people, right? Is we've all kind of grown accustomed to you buy a car that, okay, it runs on this magic liquid. It's on every street corner. They advertise it during Sunday Night Football, and that's what we've known forever. But the mindset is, refilling my car up with a fuel so it can go the distance again, I don't want to have to deal with that, but because I have to, I want it to be fast. And also, if I want it fast, I'm even willing to pay for the convenience of fast.
That's right.
So those are things I think that we're really still we are addressing that with the public of, yeah, but if your car is sitting for a long period of time somewhere, you don't necessarily need it fast, you just want it full.
Exactly. That's the reality, right? Like, I would just want to know that my fuel is taken care of, right?
Yeah.
However, if it's at home, wonderful. If I'm doing it at work, wonderful. If it's happening while I'm at Costco, also wonderful, right? The dream is to just go by the gas station and not have to stop, right? Like, I think, a lot of the conversation around fast charger ends up the thinking comes from the gas model, right? Where it's
sure.
I have to take my vehicle to a place and I have to get it filled up. The reality is, like, we've done a poor job, I think, in the EV world to say, we can break that. We can do better than that, right? Like, what if you didn't have to go to the gas station at all? Like, what if that wasn't even a thing in your neighborhood, right? Like, what if you didn't have to think about the spills and the petroleum and all that? Like, it's just, your car was just fuel.
Well, that's a sunk cost I think people have kind of just accepted for the decades of conditioning of like, well, yeah, there's a gas station there, and I got a deal, but that's the only thing I know. I think what we're hitting on is such an important factor of people that are here attending Expo is we went in the last 10 years from like, there's a handful of options out there, to now there's over 100 vehicles on the market with plugs on them that then can meet various needs of ownership. And I always look at it like kind of like a fuel conversation. It's like hopping across a pond. You've got lily pad cars. So if you've been driving a gas car forever, it's like, all right, it runs on gas. You want to go to a hybrid because you want to spend less money on fuel? Okay, there's your first lily pad, and that frankly is a good step. That next lily pad is, you know what? I got a garage, and I do take road trips sometimes, but I can plug in my garage, and I can fill up with electricity for some of my driving. It's that first taste of you probably don't have to buy gas all that much at all. And then the last lily pad being pure electric, baby, you're good to go.
100%. And honestly, I have a plug-in hybrid as well, and so like I'm always thinking, I'm always looking at my MPGs and trying to get that number as high as possible.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it's amazing how just plugging it in at home has just boosted that wildly, right? And I love trying to get that number as high as possible. And the best thing about my hybrid is the EV side of it, right? And so I'm always trying to keep it in the EV range, and I'm only wishing I had more range, right? And I think that's a very natural thing for people to want to step through is, I'm in a hybrid or I'm in a plug-in hybrid, and it's actually, wow, the electric side of this hybrid is really great.
Yeah.
And, maybe that then helps that conversation for, I'm ready for a full EV, actually.
Well, and like I said, we're talking about not drivetrain, but we're really talking about how and where they fill up and how they know how to use those fuels. We were talking a little bit before we started about even just explaining how fast charging works. The cool thing is you can fill up at a fast charger today with certain EVs in like 15 to 20 minutes. So if you are on that road trip, you might fill up your car faster than you can actually eat lunch. That's where the technology has grown to. But there's other places that you can install commercial fast charging that may not make sense to have a 15-minute fill up at that location.
100%.
It makes more sense to say, this is a movie theater, let's make this a 2-hour fill up.
100%. And when you talk to folks in the commercial real estate side at workplaces, they don't have a problem of speed. they have a problem moving people through the parking spaces
Yeah.
and the chargers, right? It's called turnover. So they have a problem turning over people in these environments. What that means is the things they've done to try to move people along through these chargers is, time limits on those chargers,
Right.
which is really unfortunate, right? Because we've taken this really great thing, EV charging and fueling where you work.
Put these rules
and now
on
we
it.
put a bunch of rules on it.
Yeah.
And, that's not helpful for anybody. But at the same time, in my workplace, we have chargers, but there's no limits, and so people do camp on them. So, you sort of understand this problem. And so the problem is distribution in a lot of ways and turnover, not necessarily speed to charge. And so with inductive robotics, what we're trying to do is decouple the vehicle from the charger and allow the charger to go from vehicle to vehicle to vehicle to vehicle, seamless for the EV owner.
Well, and again, that's the other thing for commercial locations is if you can create an opportunity by which it's not a static, dedicated, this is your charger, this is your spot, but it can turn into actually a service that can be leveraged in multiple spots, that's actually kind of a dream scenario in the sense that the flexibility that needs to happen based on some of these scenarios we're talking about is fundamental. But we're also at the beginning of this conversation. The industry is, it's as big as it is right now here at Expo, which is, again, rewind 10 years, this was like a hot dog stand and a pup tent and like 2 cars. But to the Expos team and BJ, the guy that founded it, he knew that this is the type of high-level experience people need to have. It's just come and have the festivities of this. But what we're talking about is once they leave, if they buy that car, that lifestyle that they have has to be coupled with what you're describing, which is a flexible experience for fueling.
100%. And if you look at the surveys of what are the top blockers for people buying EVs today, range anxiety, charging access, it's always number 1 or 2, right? And so what we need to do is get the ports out there. We do have a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem in this industry, right? As real estate asset owners are wondering, like, oh, I don't know if I should install EV charging. Like, it's really hard to see the demand profile. But then EV potential buyers are looking at these environments saying, where are the chargers, right?
Sure.
If I'm going to get around, like, how am I supposed to charge? So everyone's looking at each other, like, kind of waiting to see who's acting. We've seen this kind of slow rollout of charging. It's getting better and better. And I think, what we're trying to do is offer an additional solution for those asset owners to try it, see who does show up, because who has an EV as a second car, but they don't bring it to work because they don't have charging
They
at
don't have
work.
to bother, yeah.
There's people out there, right? And so, like, getting them to be able to try it, not commit to these big construction projects, timelines, expense, and then sort of see how the demand shows up.
Well, what we're talking about at a very high level is that this industry behind the scenes is making a lot of this work in a way that those anxieties you're describing, it's not like it's being unaddressed. The reality of it is, I think the thing you hit on that's important, I think, is visibility. Is if you're filling up at home, you kind of don't think about it virtually at all unless you're on that road trip. But for everyday people that are saying, well, I don't have that option, they've got to have higher visibility. I think what was tried in California was, we're just going to build as much as humanly possible. But people weren't necessarily naturally looking for places to fill up with electricity. So there was a lot of stranded assets that happened, and people that were in commercial positions like you're describing, they may have made the wrong choice.
100%. And honestly, we come across this all the time. And it's been an unfortunate reality for the industry. I think it got ahead of itself a little bit early, and a lot of burnt capital was out there. And so now a lot of times you have these conversations, I hear this all the time of, well, we tried 4 charge points back in 2015, and my utilization was awful, and 9-10% less sometimes.
Right.
And and so there's a natural hesitation now that we have to sort of re-educate, trying to get them energized about EV charging. And so the same thing on the investment side as well into businesses is like, well, we spent a lot of money on the EV charging thing about 10 years ago, didn't fly, and now we've got to get them over the hump and to say, well, technology changed, buying decisions are changing from the customers. Businesses are now being expected to have these sort of assets for their customers or for their employees. And so the whole ecosystem has changed in the past 10 years. But, in terms of real estate, that's a pretty slow time period, 10 years.
Right.
So they're carrying a lot of this reality into these new conversations, and there's a lot of re-education that needs to happen.
No, I think one thing you're hitting on that's really important is that there's been a lot that's been done to make the industry get to where it's at today. But a lot of that was done in a way to it's like, we just got to get it done. We just got to get it done. We got to get it done. But the fun part about all that is even with all the chaos that's kind of happened behind the scenes, the evidence of what we're having here at Expo is where the industry has actually grown and matured too. And I think the history books are going to write it in a way of where we're sitting right now is still the beginning of the conversation in so many ways. So I guess kind of rounding out the conversation, If someone has a commercial location, or frankly, if they want to get more information about services that you offer, how do they find you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on LinkedIn, Inductive Robotics. You can also find online, www.inductiverobotics.com. And really, we're looking for great partners in the commercial parking operator space and also commercial real estate who are thinking about EV charging. They're trying to figure out, what is my charging plan for the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years? And commercial operators who are trying to figure out, how do I bring more folks to this property? How do I offer a premium service, but be careful with the capital I lay out and do it on a smart timeline?
Well, again, at the end of the day, it's about visibility for that fill-up. I think what you're doing, again, is it's fundamental to helping re-educate, but also educate the new people coming. But that re-education you talk about for people that have tried it and need to get it right, it's going to be important moving forward. So at the end of the day, there's over 100,000 public charging locations in North America. There's not a lot of signage for it, though. So that's the hard part, but the work that you're doing is making it happen. Again, apps like Chargeway, what we've developed out, gives visibility to that for drivers. It's important. So make sure to give that a download, but make sure to check out Inductive Robotics. If you have questions about commercial installations for charging, give them a shout. This is the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com. This is Electrify Expo Seattle. It is a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest.